Syrian army and allied fighters retake the control of the town of Ma'an in Hama province from foreign-backed militants. Iraq summons the Turkish ambassador to protest Ankara's military deployment in the north of the Arab country. Russia says plans by the U.S. for, quote, proportional response to alleged Russian hacks would be a cybercrime. Scotland will publish a fresh independence referendum bill for consultation next week, accusing London of ignoring Scottish interests in its desire for a hard exit from the EU. French President François Hollande says a roadmap needs to be drawn up for resolving the Ukraine crisis. This is Press TV's Top 5. Thanks for joining us. The Syrian army is making significant gains against terrorists. Government troops have taken control of the town of Ma'an in Hama province. This comes on the heels of more victories by the army in the same province. Government forces killed more than 70 Takfiri terrorists and wounded around 30 others in Hama on Wednesday. Syrian forces also destroyed a number of tanks and military vehicles used by militants. Army troops inflicted losses on militants in other provinces, including Aleppo, Daraa, and Latakia as well. To get the latest on that, we're now joined by Ala Ibrahim, Press TV's correspondent, who is joining us live now from Damascus. Ala, how significant have these gains been?
Yes, they are very significant for three different reasons. The first reason is that these are strategically positioned towns that will allow the Syrian army to cut off terrorist supply lines between Idlib province, which is now has become a de facto emirate for Al-Qaeda in Syria. And the second reason is that these areas were lost to foreign-backed insurgents earlier this year when they launched a large-scale offensive trying to distract the Syrian army from its military operation in Aleppo. And by this, the Syrian army would have made sure that it not only it regained what it lost because of that military attack by the insurgents, but it also proved once again that it is capable of carrying out multiple large-scale military operations in more than one front, and it cannot be distracted as it have sufficient human resources and resources in general to allocate to more than one battle at the same time. And the third and most important reason is now the city of Hama, the provincial capital of Hama province, is now 100% secure, according to a Syrian military source that Press TV spoke with this morning. Also, we should take into consideration that the strategic position of Hama province in general, as Hama is part of central Syria, makes any further advancement in Hama an additional guarantee to the safety of the main supply roads and routes connecting different parts of Syria together. And we're speaking here about mainly about the road leading to Aleppo city and Aleppo province, and the road leading from Damascus, the capital, into central Syria and then into the coastal parts of the country in Latakia and Tartus provinces.
And of course, as you well know, in the mainstream media, all the talk is just about Aleppo at this point, and a wave of criticism towards Russia and Syria pretty much on a daily basis, hourly basis. What is the latest when it comes to eastern Aleppo?
Well, the latest in eastern Aleppo is that this morning, foreign-backed insurgents who are in control of eastern Aleppo have carried out a mortar shell attacks on government-controlled parts of the city of Aleppo in the western sector of the city, killing 5 children in Hatem Al-Ta'is school, elementary school. And since then, the Syrian army, backed by the Russian Air Force, has been carrying out intensive air raids against militant positions in eastern Aleppo. Not to mention that this afternoon there has been reports by Hezbollah's military media cell, or the military media team in Hezbollah, who said that fighters from the Lebanese resistance movement fighting alongside the Syrian army have managed to capture a number of Nusra fighters, the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, which means that significant gains have been made in Sheikh Said district, which is a district of eastern Aleppo that is considered to be the gate of eastern Aleppo, or the rebel-controlled parts of the city.
Okay, Ala, we leave it there at that, but of course, as always, we appreciate your reporting for us. Iraq has summoned the Turkish ambassador to protest Turkey's military presence in the north of the Arab country. The Iraqi Foreign Ministry says it has given a strongly worded note of protest to the envoy over the deployment of Turkish forces in the town of Bashikha. The summon comes a few days after Ankara shrugged off Baghdad's repeated calls for withdrawing the troops. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has defiantly warned Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi to know his limits. Turkish Prime Minister Bin Ali Yildirim has said Ankara will not pull out the soldiers no matter what the Iraqi government says. Turkey seeks to maintain an estimated 2,000 troops in northern Iraq to, quote, fight terror organizations. Iraq says the move would trigger a regional war. Well, to discuss that further, and I joined Mr. Sabah Jawad, who is an Iraqi political commentator, and he's joining us live now via Skype from London. Mr. Jawad, why do you think it is that Turkey is so insistent on staying on Iraqi soil?
Well, they have a plan actually for Mosul and for Nineveh. They have a long-held ambition to hold to Iraqi territories and make them part of the Turkish empire, if you like. This is not acceptable to the Iraqis. The entire Iraqi people are united against the Turkish presence in northern Iraq, and the Americans are playing a dirty game in all of this. The Turkish government will not dare actually to maintain its forces in Iraq without the go-ahead from the United States. The United States got other plans which I'll come to in a minute. But the Iraqi government actually should do much more toward this aggression from Turkey with the full support of the Iraqi people. They called in the ambassador and gave him a long-worded message to the Turkish governments that actually they should refrain from making these remarks about the Iraqi government and about Iraq and the continuing presence of their troops in northern Iraq. Iraq should flex its muscles, commercial muscles, because Iraq actually imports from Turkey more than $15 billion worth of trade. And this will be very harmful for the Turkish economy. The Iraqis actually starts taking steps toward teaching the Turkish government some lessons in that. And I cannot see why the Turkish ambassador is still remaining in Iraq. They should expel him today, if not, if not sooner than in the next few hours. The American actually they have a plan for Al-Mosul, for Nineveh, after the liberation from terrorism. One of their plans, actually, they are in with the Saudis as well. The Saudis are in on this plan, is to actually allow ISIS terrorists to escape from Mosul with the protection of the American Air Force and to go to Syria. So they wanted ISIS to continue to remain a card in the hand of the Americans and the Saudi and the Turkish government to be played whenever they want for the further destruction of Syria and Iraq and other countries in the Middle East. This is the truly sinister plans of the United States in Iraq, together with the Saudi regime. And we've seen what they've been doing to Yemen. And the bombardment, even so, by the Americans against the Yemeni people. Like if Yemen has no enough enemy, now the United States directly bombing the Yemeni people as well. So America has gone mad. The election is coming up. Obama wants to present some kind of a gift for the Democrat Party to win the election. And therefore they need so-called victory in Mosul, and that victory in Mosul will be shallow, because what they wanted to do is to allow the ISIS terrorists to escape to Syria, and then they could claim they liberated Iraq from ISIS terrorists. But the Iraqi people are watchful. The mobilization forces are there and ready to expel the invaders, whether Turkey or the United States or the Saudi terrorist thugs.
Mr. Jawad, we have about a minute left, so I wanted to ask you this because I know it's a bit of a sensitive topic in Iraq itself, obviously, but a lot of Turkish media are saying that this is actually an issue of division within Iraq between the central government and the Kurdistan regional government over this Turkish involvement over Mosul or wherever it may be. How do you feel about such arguments?
Look, Mosul is part of Iraq. It's not part of the region of Kurdistan. It's not part of Turkey. No matter what kind of agreements reached between Masoud al-Barzani and Erdogan or the former governor of Mosul, it's nothing to do with the Iraqi people. The Iraqi people are, and Iraq is a sovereign nation, could conclude deals and agreements and military pact with anyone they wish to have in the fight against terrorism. Turkey is not there in Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government or the Iraqi people. And no matter what Masoud al-Barzani does or Atil al-Najafi does, it's nothing to do, neither here or there, with the Iraqi people.
Very well. We'll leave it there at that point, Mr. Jawad. But of course, as always, we appreciate you taking your time out to speak to us here at Press TV. Russia has warned the U.S. against any cyber attack on Russian organizations or individuals. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman says such a move would be a cybercrime. Maria Zakharova added that the White House is continuing to destroy relations with the Kremlin ahead of the November presidential election in the U.S. Zakharova described the U.S. allegations that Moscow attacked Democratic National Committee emails and the sites of other Democratic Party organizations as a lie. Her comments come after the U.S. threatened to give what it calls a proportional response to alleged hacking of American agencies and officials by Russia. The Obama administration also accuses Russia of trying to influence the U.S. election process. Well, to discuss that further, and I join Mr. Vladimir Goldstein, who is a lecturer at Brown University, and he's joining us live now via Skype from Rhode Island. Thanks very much for joining us here on Press TV, sir. I guess this goes back to the Russian boogeyman, I guess, doesn't it? When it comes to these elections, Russia is to be blamed for everything.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. It's a very simple story of elections, of election campaigns, and Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton decides to ride the wave of Russophobia. That's she cannot stand on a very strong Democratic Party economics, on a very successful foreign policy. So the only thing she can do is unleash this anger at Russia. And we should remember that Hillary Clinton is prone to this conspirological thinking. When there was a long time ago, when there was all this, investigations of her husband Bill Clinton, she coined the phrase "vast right-wing conspiracy." So I think now she comes up with this vast Russian conspiracy, which she finds everywhere, including the situation of the Democratic Party and their nominational process and elections and so on. So basically what she's being engaged in is like blaming the messenger for the message. That, they're not quite clean in terms of their democratic process, they're not quite clean in terms of selecting the proper candidate. And what I find disturbing is that this is a concrete case of a political campaign, but somehow she managed, with the help of mass media, which supports her, turn it into American issue. Somehow she managed to turn it into the fact that Russia is interfering with American democracy. Nothing of the sort. Russia cannot, even if it wanted, cannot interfere with American democracy. It's up to Americans to select their candidates. But she somehow managed to convey it, and a lot of writers in the media, so-called neocons who support her, who think that she will continue their policy, now come up and write and pontificate in various newspapers. I just read the other day in Newsday, writer Max Boot, very well-known neocon, who more or less says we have to respond to Russian cyber attack and how we should do that and so on. So it's a political game, nothing else. But as a result of that, of course, a relationship between Russia and the US deteriorate, and we see escalation, which is very dangerous escalation. So why on earth, the wall should be threatened by a concrete political process is not quite clear to me.
Indeed, we have about a minute left, Mr. Goldstein. I'm wondering, and of course, as you said, alluded to there, this cannot be seen in a vacuum because obviously there's provocations towards Russia going on elsewhere, be it in Ukraine, be it in Syria, be it NATO expansionism. I mean, Russia feels, I would imagine, under quite a bit of pressure right now from the West in general. So how do you think Russia will react beyond just the warning of any cyber attack?
Well, I'm sure that Russians are thinking of sort of, if something happened, they will probably respond in kind, but I don't think they are that petty. I think Russia finally realized that they have to craft their own foreign policy, and they shouldn't try to please a United States or the West, because no matter what they try to do, it's always like new sanctions, new accusations, and so on. And Russia should remind the world that United States are notorious for hacking the phones of Chancellor Merkel in Germany and hacking the sort of top-notch politicians in France. So there is nothing new about that. The countries probably do that. United States are probably a champion of the whole thing. So Russia should just remind, what's going on and keep on doing what they find, in their own interest. Because, we already know the power of Western media. We already know that no matter what's going on in Syria with Aleppo and Ukraine, whatever, it will be only one-sided. So I think Russia should probably just, keep its powder dry and continue with what we think is fair and kind of respecting all sides of the process.
Very well. We'll leave it at that. But of course, Mr. Goldstein, we appreciate you sharing your insight with us. Now, the Scottish First Minister says she is set to publish a bill in order to lay the groundwork